let's go. Let's start with Aishwarya then.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Aishwarya Mohanty. I'm an independent journalist and researcher. I've been a journalist for like 7 years and an independent journalist for 2 years now. And I mostly write on environment and the intersection of gender, social justice issues. I've majorly reported from Gujarat and Odisha, and now I'm settled in Madhya Pradesh. Um, Apprehension wise, one of the apprehensions that I feel now, because we now do long form articles and we spend a lot of time with the community, one of the apprehension is how intrusive are we into the lives of the people we are documenting. So that's a question that stays with me always. Of course, we take a lot of consent before we even photograph them. We use their names and write the bits that we do in our story to get the story right. But I think that's an apprehension that always stays with me. I could only think of one because I was the first one to go. So yeah, I'll just stick to that. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a super important thing to keep in mind, right? And like right off the bat, we've got the bar set right here. So let's go. Basira, can we have you next?
Hi everyone, my name is Basira and I'm based in Srinagar. I am a freelance journalist with a few years of experience in radio, TV, and print, predominantly print. And I focused on environment, health, and women mostly, and the minority community that's transgender. I received a few fellowships about that, and children and trafficking. I did a documentary on trafficking as well, the girls that were being trafficked from West Bengal to Kashmir in the name of marriage. They were lured into sex trade, or someone was married here. So that took a lot of time and energy, that documentary. And so my apprehension, I won't say as a freelance journalist, but as a journalist, for me, it has been like I get too much emotionally attached to the candidate. If a candidate or the person you are interviewing for a longer time, for example, in trafficking issue, I talked to so many such victims that I couldn't get them out of my head for months. That was the hangover. Or I did a story about an acid attack victim. Her story moved in my head for so long. So I am yet to understand that how do we disconnect ourselves? Yes, you have to be in the story, you have to be there as a journalist, as questioning the other one. But sympathy and empathy, I am yet to actually divide them and see myself, because some people get an interview done and they go home and they go and sleep. Okay, but I cannot do that. But that is why I take time from one story to another story, because I am into that. I go into, I don't know what, but every such story has a deep impact on me. I am yet to work on that. That's a single apprehension I had. The other one is for a freelance journalist. I would say, like, for example, a story is pitch. You know that you have a set deadline. For example, you work on flexible deadlines. A story needs 2 or 3 months to complete, or a month for that matter. So you completely immerse yourself into that thing. So at that point of time, I am not able to do other stories. Okay, I'm just at one point of time I'm only concentrate. But in the business of freelancing, as Alia said, or the trade of freelancing, you have to keep on going, because it's not a continuous chain. I spend 2 months on a story, I'll get paid after 2 months about that. But I need more stories.
Got
That's
it. I am going to cut short because we've
Yeah,
got
yeah.
other journalists to get to. Your pointers, how to not be as emotionally attached even after a story is done one, and multitasking while doing one single story. So that's two apprehensions of yours. I'm outright sitting here with a book and a pen and noting all of this down.
Sorry, Guy. I just want to interrupt because since we mostly, like, this is not our first webinar, we have been interacting with each other. So to save everyone's time, maybe if we can just quickly answer only
Bullet
the
points, bullet
things
points, bullet
to the
points.
point, that will save most of our time, and we can just start the webinar. Yeah.
Pooja, how about you go next?
Hi, Almaas. Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Hi, Safina, your baby is too cute. I had to say that. So yeah, I saw you were cuddling her. So
Yeah.
to answer your questions, Almaas, I am based in Kolkata.
Mm-hmm.
I report on health, science, environment, gender justice, rights, and a little bit of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two issues I grapple with as a freelance journalist.
Mm-hmm.
One is when reporting on vulnerable communities, right? So one thing I really struggle with is like they share their stories and they expect something to come out of that. And when it doesn't, it sort of disappoints them. So, for example, I have reported a lot on homelessness and homeless people, and they are yet to see any change in their condition. So I also feel bad going back to them, because I also feel as a reporter sustained reporting is needed to bring back any change. But that's but they feel discouraged, right? A And another thing that I'm apprehensive about is, like, since I'm a freelancer, many times, like, sensitive stories I work on, like, people don't want to give me access because they don't because I don't have any bona fide credential. Like, I can't say that, say, for example, I come from, say, the scroll or the print, or, like, I tell them that I have worked with all these organizations. And sometimes, especially people higher up, like, people in a position of authority who can help me gain access to certain people, they are not convinced. So these are the two things I grapple with, and some things I'm apprehensive about when I'm reporting on something sensitive.
Thank you, Pooja. So immediate gratitude and immediate results is something that these expectations you have to handle and manage. One, and access. The struggle for access is real for everybody in this room at the moment. I think that's safe to say that. How about you, Safina?
Hi, Almaas. My name is Safina. I'm based out of Kashmir, but I generally cover South Asia. Different, beats and their intersection with majority gender. One of the apprehensions. I'm so sorry. Just don't worry. I didn't want to change rooms because that was more comfy, but I had to because the baby is actually asking me to give me the phone. So I had to shift. Sorry for that. So yeah, so one of the apprehensions that I basically have while I report a story, since I do long form and I do mostly narrative writing, there's a lot of information that people share with me, and at times I feel like the most of the information that I get doesn't make it to the story. Or even if some content make it to the story, the editor somehow cuts us down. And at times it just makes me feel terrible. And in the sense that some details are, important uh, to go into the story, but somehow the editor feels that it's not required. So I sometimes feel like that I have betrayed my sources, and at times I feel like I have been betrayed by the editor. So I'm just in this constant fight always between my mind and heart, that how will I make most of the content into the story.
Got it. Victim of merciless chop chop then.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's noted. How about Seher? It's Seher, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So I'm a journalist based in Kashmir, and I do multimedia stories. And my apprehensions are basically what Basira also she just discussed, that feeling disconnected when you meet somebody, when you do somebody, when you cover somebody. So I think, yeah, that disconnect, how to feel disconnected after doing somebody's story. And also one more thing, that because I do multimedia, people feel reluctant to come in front of the camera. And there are a lot of trust issues, and because I'm a freelancer, they ask me, आप किस organization से हैं, and I cannot show them a card, and I think these are some of the things that I really need to think about in coming years.
Got it. We've got access and building network within the sources. This seems like a repeating theme.
Yeah.
How about we quickly go to Shanika?
Yeah. Shanika, are you there?
Okay, let's skip to Arifa in
Yeah,
the
Arifa.
meanwhile.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi everyone. Hi Almaas. Actually, I'm an independent journalist, and I cover climate and culture and health from Kashmir. I basically wanted to ask, as Seher was saying, when you are not carrying a press card, I mean, how do you make people feel comfortable to talk to you or to share the details? And another thing is, if the story has been covered, they say it's already over the paper. So what else do you want? They are not like that comfortable in sharing the more details. So how do you convince them to share the details? Okay.
Noted. Noted.
These were the common questions that even Pooja talked about, that as a freelancer where we do not have a press card, I mean, our credentials are always questioned. But I think a quick tip from my experience would be that if you are, as Pooja was saying, for example, doing a sensitive story, then you can in advance like have a letter, like maybe from an organization. It's quite common for organizations. I mean, that's what I have done. For example, if I'm just working on a sensitive project, then I get that letter in advance from the grantee or from the the organizations who have commissioned the story, and then that helps with not people at the community level, but people who, as Pooja was saying, higher ups like officials. I mean, in one of the instance, I remember like 1 year before, I was literally my interview was delayed for 1 and 2 hours till the officer completely went through that letter, checked my website, checked credentials and the kind of stories I have done in the past. So guys, all I can say is just be prepared. It's not something that happens out of nothing. We should all be prepared like in advance, when we go into the field. I mean, that's a quick tip from my side.
That's pretty much it. Be prepared, right? Think for all sorts of worst case scenarios. This is something that we'll cover more as we go ahead with our presentation.
Sorry, Almaas, for again interrupting you guys. Since everyone was on time, I think we can quickly wrap this up, and and then while we will be having a session completely on discussions, then we'll get more time to talk about this. So let's start right away the presentation, the webinar. I'll start with your introduction, and then we can go ahead. And please, members, you can interrupt after Almaas will finish her presentation, and then the floor will be all yours to ask questions, right?
Yes.
So I'll start with your introduction, and then we can just go ahead, right?
Let's do this.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. It's my pleasure to introduce Almaas for today's webinar on tech and reporting issues. Almaas is an accomplished multimedia journalist based out of Hyderabad, and she has been covering critical issues at the intersection of tech, labor, and environmental change. And Almaas brings a wealth of, knowledge and expertise, with her, and because her work has been published in major outlets like Reuters, Al Jazeera, Mongabe, Rest of the World, and Wall Street Journal. And she has mostly focused on these complex dynamics of economic and environmental changes, also impacting the coastal communities in India. So today she'll be sharing her insights on how tech influences labor reporting and the unique challenges faced by women freelancers. So we'll be having an, as I said, engaging discussion after her presentation, which will elicit insights about the intersection of tech and labor, unorganized markets. So please join me in welcoming Almaas Masood.
Thank you, Alia, for the kind words. Yeah, let's begin the presentation then.
Yeah.
Right, let's go. So that's how we intend it to be. A little bit about me. Let's start with the presentation. So this is me. I do quite some ground reporting, which involves photography and then in-depth feature writing as well. I've also dabbled with producing broadcast stories. And yeah, my approach to storytelling involves, I think you just start your day with reading a newspaper and consuming information. But I do understand it gets very taxing. And this is the agenda for the day. I we're past the introductions, then let's skip to the tools for trade, and then I'll be touching on safe practices where I would be addressing the apprehensions that we had initially spoken about. And then I've also got an activity planned for us. So let's jump in. Let's jump into this. This is one of the stories that I've done. The building that we see in the background is a data center by Microsoft. And this is one of the migrant workers who had been working on that building. He was involved in the construction process. वो आए थे and he has had to stay within the premises गांव के पास में. And working on this story was interesting in many ways, right? ये है तो tech story which involves migrant workers and the unorganized sector, but the nature of the story was a very, very legally complicated one. So for me to be able to come through with the story, I've had to consume a fat PIL with a lot of legal jargon, and then I've also had to be careful about not overstepping my line because ये a continuous case था, the hearing was going on. And as a general practice in media, we don't really do in-depth feature stories on an active court case. But this was one such anomaly where, the editor and I thought, okay, it has to be told. Well, the challenges were there. The challenges that I faced while working on this particular story was one, I couldn't reveal many identities. I could not absolutely pinpoint कि अच्छा इन्होंने ही ऐसे किया है, उन्होंने ही वैसे किया है, या इनकी वजह से ऐसे हो गया है. Because all of this was being debated in the court as I was reporting. So those were some of the legals that I have had to be extremely thorough with. Every word that went into writing this had been gone and fact checked over and over and over. It took about 3 months by the time the story was out. And in the end, Microsoft themselves gave us a response. The response came from the headquarters itself. We'd built a whole questionnaire for them based on the villagers' accusations against this construction of the building. Now, the villagers want this building to be demolished completely. तो ये है कि क्यों इतना ड्रास्टिक एक्सट्रीम स्टेप चाहिए ही क्यों उन गांव वालों को was the question. And we kept digging तो वही हो गया, लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स निकालना पड़ा, लैंड यूजेज की बात आ गई इसमें. फिर ये भी बात आ गई कि who owns this land, ये एंक्रोच हुई है कि नहीं हुई है. So when we talk about tech per se, technology hai, it could be Microsoft, it could be something like urban company where it is more of an app based thing जहां पे तुमको लैंड राइट्स का इशू नहीं आएगा. बट something as physical a structure as this, I don't think it's fair to restrict ourselves just within the space of information and technology. My approach to things is people first, right? So this brings us back to how to spot underreported stories and then challenges in building sources. I'll also be talking about the two sides of a coin and on how to be balanced in an extremely politically charged up atmosphere that we face in our daily, and then the challenges of reporting. So, how to spot underreported stories? I feel that these stories are around us. Mano, the other day I was sitting and scrolling, doom scrolling Instagram as we all do. Right, and on that, the algorithm has tweaked itself to the point where it gives me the things that I work on. So usme, I kept seeing these young fishermen using social media to assert their identity. Apne India mein, this has the fishing community, right? The peninsular part of India, for the most part, has been underreported. उनका कोई demographic में count नहीं होता है. So that's something that hit me right while doom scrolling, that how young boys, where unemployment is an issue, lack of education is an issue, climate crisis is on an ever rising trend, are asserting their identities, are telling their own stories just with the simple use of Instagram. And this was the first time that, as an outsider from the outside perspective, we were given a chance into their lives, inside their lives, as simple as the style of cooking that they do, which is completely different, right? अगर आप culture के बारे में बात करते हो, then that's something that you can mix up tech and culture on how, or asserting identity or access to the outside world using tech. So that's something that uh, came to me. This other time, I was working on another story, right? Then you're on ground. I was on ground, working, interviewing women, looking at the different scenarios wahan pe based on the story. But by the way, on the sidelines, there are also multiple conversations going on. You are also seeing things. जो हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है, क्या है, कैसे है. All right, we're back on. May I continue, guys?
Yes.
Wonderful. So, underreported stories, I'd say put people first when we're talking about technology, because more often than not, the companies and different stakeholders have already taken care of the technology side of things. It's the people who usually be left out, especially the marginalized communities ho gaye, um, the youth who don't have access and money to go and invest in a smartphone. So that's a pretty big demographic, and really, I do not want this demographic to be left out of the benefits of the vast wealth of information that these upcoming technologies are able to provide. So that's one. Dusra, challenges in building sources, right? So of course, when we are talking about environmentally sensitive stories, yeah, when we're dealing with women-centric stories and when there's gender in place, I'm pretty sure most of us by now have faced these challenges. The women would be very apprehensive of speaking up. One is log kya kahenge is a big, big, big thing within our country. Let's just be real about this, right? And how do you convince somebody to pour their heart out to you and build that trust within 2 seconds or 2 minutes of meeting them, and especially without a press card? I would say you being a woman yourself would play a major role in this, right? The soft nature as opposed to the towering masculine, you know, presence that a man might bring within these spaces. मानो कोई सहमी हुई औरत है, she is already facing abusive conditions at work, underpaid, she's already burdened with घर के काम, 5 और चीजें करनी बाकी है. Now, how do you expect somebody to open up to you, speak up to you? It would be good to let the woman know or let your subject know that you have been doing this for a certain period in time, that you are trained to do this. You also assure them कि you give them options, right? कि you can either be anonymous in this, or we can assure कि bus very limited information about you can be put out only if you are comfortable with it. You allow them these options. You tell them that they still have options. There's no compulsion, right? You don't corner these women. Of course, give them the time and space. Let them choose a space comfortable for them to speak. At least that's what I do, right? I ask them where they feel comfortable. Would having one of their friends along through the interview would help them. And more often than not, वो लोग बोलेंगे कि हाँ मैं अपनी एक दोस्त को सहेली को भी साथ में लेके आती हूँ. And then the three of us have had some wonderful conversations. उनके घर के टेरेस पे हुआ है, और ऐसे किसी छोटू से चाय की टपरी के पास हुआ है, ऐसे these conversations. There have been times where I have had to just sit hiding outside a factory waiting for these women to come out, and then sort of see कि कौन है, कहाँ जा रहे हैं. First study the movements, कि you will also be able to identify certain patterns, कि what is it that is stopping the women from talking. And if you can isolate and move the women away from that immediate threatful situation, you always give them these options. But for that, you would have had to orient yourself to the location and the situation. Yeah. Yes, orientation, and doing your homework before is always important, right? You always map out your entries and exit points of a location. You have your plan Bs in place. Um, yeah, always have your plan B in place, right? So these are some of the challenges. ये digital illiteracy हो गई, inaccessibility हो गई, and there's only as much you can do. And you will have to play with your strengths. That is, your gender itself is a strength. To say that अच्छा नहीं, मैं औरत हूँ, मेरे को वहाँ access नहीं मिलेगा. I think being a woman, right, if something have access both into the man's world as well as the women's world, whereas men rarely get that opportunity. So play it to the max. You can be within both of these spaces equally well. And of course, put people first. Technology is, well, at the end of the day, designed to make our lives simpler. But is it really making it simpler and efficient is something that needs to be questioned. So when I say two sides of a coin, ये हो गया problems and challenges. You all have been in this industry, some of you for over 5 years, 7 years long. I am sure you have seen, these difficult situations. And based on your understanding and your methods, by now you would have a set method in place. I also think that knowing the local language um, plays a major role in it. If you are able to sit down with them and have a communication in a language that they are comfortable with, uh, that's half the battle won. This other thing that has come handy to me on ground, especially when reporting with vulnerable communities and women is their jewelry. As who, I mean, what woman does not like being complimented on their jewelry, right? And well, I have multiple piercings, and that's something that they take note of. So even before, there have been instances even before I have gone and approached them, a woman herself would come and start being curious about ke, oh acha tumhara kaan kaisa hai, and come and do mess around with my ears just out of curiosity. So I think um encourage the curiosity instead of you going in your shell in these spaces and situations. If you spot any sense of curiosity, fan it, right? Because it will lead you into building a more personal relationship with the woman. Although it would be superficial because ऊपर ऊपर से की ही बात कर रहे हैं, ज्वेलरी की बात कर ली या वो कोई रेसिपी की बात कर ली. I think these are great points to connect with another woman to show that, hey, you know what, I also understand these things while I am also a trained journalist and I can assure you about A, B, C, D. The ice breaking will happen and then give them options, make them feel comfortable in most scenarios. So these are some of the things that I do, which has helped me build sources and sort of, get through extremely challenging and tricky situations. Jewelry and food has come handy to me. And yeah, two sides of a coin. Abhi kitna hi tragedy stories pe likh पाएंगे. It definitely comes with its own emotional toll on our mental health and emotional health as well. Like there was a time I was reporting through COVID when the migrant exodus had sort of started. Tabhi to Hyderabad se people were going towards up north, traveling up north. Wahan pe the reverse migration had started. And yeah, there was a one family who were waiting for the buses वगैरह. The local police had organized, arranged कुछ ना कुछ जैसे तैसे जुगाड़ करके. So that was going on. The only condition was the groups of migrant workers have to reach the designated location by so and so time. So you could see चल के आ रहे हैं ऐसे जैसे तैसे. Somehow a group had made it to this designated spot. अभी they were all waiting. शामियाना टेंट्स वगैरह सेटअप कर रखी थी पुलिस ने. And you had to cross the road where these buses were organized for these designated routes. तो उसके हिसाब से everything was going as planned वगैरह. And as soon as one of the buses started, sort of coming in, you could see the sense of relief and that agitation on this group of people. Now I outright burst into tears. I had to go on ground. वो काम वाम तो चल ही रहा था, but I also had to compose myself, right? I quickly just went behind a tree, वही आंसू पोंछे, all of that jazz. Composed. So you will come across overwhelming situations in which it is okay to lose your composure, but then it is not okay to dwell in that situation. You take your 2 minutes. 2 minute में ऐसी कुछ पहाड़ कहर नहीं टूट जाएगा. Take those 2 minutes, but then come back composed and continue whatever it is that you were trying to do instead of repressing that emotion, right? Because why? That's not helping anybody. Why? By repressing that one tear or two tear that you might want to shed in between it all. Because these are not normal circumstances. These are absolutely overwhelming, tragic things. It might make you angry also. The helplessness is something that has troubled me. That helplessness feeling, right? When you see कि कुछ हो रहा है सामने, but well, yeah, you need to ask yourself, take a step back, ask yourself that is this a crusade that I have set out for? Or is that the assignment that I need to be doing? So while you are out there spotting these problems, also sort of train your brain to spot the flip side to these things, right? What is news at the end of the day is a blip in our surroundings. It is still an anomaly. So there's one such anomaly that I'd experienced is while reporting the same story. Ye wali hi story when I was reporting. So remember I had mentioned it was a fat PIL that I have had to go through to report on that tech story. The villagers who had filed a court case, here's how they did it. So on ground, the encroachment side of things, it was all barricaded. No entry boards lag chuke the, private property ban chuka tha. So there was no way that people could even go near their own source of water body as they had generationally, historically been doing. So the sarpanch of that gaon, this man flew a drone over the building, got all the photographs required, so he did not even have to go close to it. वैसे drone उड़ा के, and this was the first time that I was seeing something as new and different, right? I who would have thought कि अच्छा वो किसी रूरल गांव में बैठ के एक सरपंच केस बिल कर रहा होगा माइक्रोसॉफ्ट के अगेंस्ट, और उसको जीतने के लिए ही इज विलिंग टू जैसे तैसे पैसे जोड़ जाड़ के उसने ड्रोन उड़ाया. I think that in itself is a big story on how, on one end, we're talking about digital illiteracy and inaccess to education, restriction of movement. ये हो रहा है, but on the flip side, there are also people who are going against these challenges and overcoming them. And saying कि तुम हमको यहाँ से ऐसे नहीं जाने दोगे तो हम उसको उड़ा के ला लेंगे. That kind of resilience is something that I thoroughly enjoy working with. Right. So that was one beautiful example of how technology, while not being for people, was also being used in these types of ways. Again, you'd also have seen these government schemes जहाँ पे uh, rural agrarian sector में drones were being used for pesticides. I think that's a great health and tech story because one, it is reducing the burden on the people, it is removing the labor intensive aspect of it, right? um, this is super helpful for small scale agriculturals also. माने उनकी आधे एकड़ की जमीन भी होगी, it's saving so much time for them, it's making their lives efficient. They can focus and concentrate that time and resources that they're saving on this onto anything else, right? As simple as the woman can sit in leisure. That's something that is overlooked as well. कि शांति से बस 1 घंटा कुछ नहीं किया उस औरत ने. I think that's amazing in itself that a woman is able to enjoy that 1 hour of her time. Because for women mostly it's divided into कि अच्छा इनको इस काम में टाइम चला गया, उस काम में टाइम चला गया, उस काम में टाइम चला गया. But well, with the onset of technology, and if you are able to equip a minority demographic or a marginalized demographic or a vulnerable demographic with technology, how is it aiding them? These are the types of questions that we need to prompt. And the only way we can do that is by showing one or two of these examples that we see, or that instead of always highlighting कि अच्छा ये नहीं है, नहीं है, नहीं है, तो है, ठीक है, नहीं है, it's evident. But I think it also helps to show अगर होता है तो क्या होता है वाला picture भी बता सकेंगे, then it would also push for a policy level change, right? If that model can be replicated across different geographical spaces, then there's nothing like it. But लोगों को पता भी तो चले कि ऐसे कुछ हो रहा है. So I think it's very important to show these two sides of a coin. While agreed there are tragedies, there are also flip sides to these tragedies. That one-off anomaly, which might sort of encourage a thought, encourage a policy level or a ground level change. So that's something I think we need to also focus on and not leave out completely. Well, challenges of reporting, I'll move on to the fourth point. Well, we've all been working in some pretty intense spaces, right? We have people from Kashmir, we have people who worked in Kolkata and Orissa, MP. So these are some pretty intense spaces, weather wise हो गया या geographical landscape wise हो गया या politicals wise हो गया. There are different combinations, and you are the best person to maneuver through these things because one, you would have the local cultural knowledge for it. अभी मान लो मेरा काम सर पे दुपट्टा डाल के होता है, देन मैं सर पे दुपट्टा डाल के चुपचाप से काम करके निकल जाऊंगी. मैं ये लड़ाई नहीं लड़ते बैठूंगी कि नहीं मेरे को जीन्स और टी शर्ट में ही जाके करना है. So this sort of comes, this respecting and understanding the local cultural biases also comes into play. ऐसे अड़ के नहीं बैठना है. For me, at the end of the day, I want to get my job done. ऐसे भी करूं या वैसे भी करूं, what how does it matter? It's getting my job done, right? अगर सर पे दुपट्टा डाल के हो रहा है मेरा काम, I'm more than happy to. क्या मेरे को क्या ही करना है वो, because if I sit challenging the whole patriarchy of that ground level scenario, I know I am not there to do that. उनके गांव में वो वैसे चलता आ रहा है सदियों से. अभी मैं जाके कुछ नया उसमें क्रूसेड नहीं स्टार्ट कर सकूंगी. If I'm there to talk about digital illiteracy, if I'm there to, report on environmental impacts on this self-help group of women, I'll go do that. Try to blend in with the surroundings. Those are something that I do. Hmm. Baki threats, right? I've also received threats ke, back off from this story. You can't be doing this. You will have consequences. Itne saal ki jail, la la la. Those things happen. And ऐसे भी नहीं कि ऐसे जोश जोश में जाके नहीं नहीं ऐसे कैसे बोल सकता है मेरे को वो is why unnecessary. If you can lay low for 2 days, lay low for 2 days, but on the third day go back, try it from a different way, different method, from a different source. If you really, really do want to do it, then just be smart about it. And how can you be smart about challenging scenarios is something that I will cover here. Some of the safe practices that I follow myself. I sort of divide an assignment into a pre-assignment checklist, a during assignment checklist, and a post-assignment checklist. So pre में क्या करूंगी मैं, मानो I have to go to a coastal location where I know inherently a woman in on a boat is considered inauspicious, कि हमको तो वहां पे एंट्री ही नहीं है. और it's वैसे post sunset तो a woman at a coast is just not even happening. So these are some of the things that you need to study. उनके local superstitions क्या हैं, उनके local cultural norms क्या हैं. उन चीजों का ख्याल रखना would be very very important so as to not upset somebody, and then it diverts into a whole separate headache altogether. So if you can avoid those things, best to avoid it. Orienting yourself, like I had previously mentioned, plan out your entry points, exit points. What hotel would you be staying? Your quick emergency healthcare number. Travel with these basic things, right? Chikki rakh li saath, oral rehydration salts rakh liye saath, a sanitary napkin or two with yourself. It, these things help. It keeps your mind also calm and gives you that assurance, okay, you know what, come what may, I am equipped to handle these adverse situations. It would also help to do a SWOT analysis. Well, these are the MBA में लोग सीखते हैं कि do ये वाला analysis कर लो, वो वाला analysis कर लो. But it helps to do a quick risk assessment. SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. This make a क्या बोलते हैं उसको, like a quick graph type, say, with an x-axis, y-axis, and write SWOT in each bucket, and list out all of the things that you can think about that particular assignment which might fall under these buckets. Strengths में क्या क्या डाल सकते हो, weakness, खुद की weakness या situational weakness, वो डाल दो. opportunities क्या हैं, क्या हो सकती हैं, वो डाल दो. थ्रेट्स, कैसी थ्रेट्स होंगी उस सिचुएशन में, write those things down. So once you have that in writing and it's glaring back at you, is when you will be able to make better decisions. You are equipped with information even before you're on ground, or even before you've started doing your research, even before you have gone into these rabbit holes. I think that this absolutely helps. Analyzing कि तुम खुद कितने पानी में हो before you even show up. And this I cannot stress, which is scrubbing your socials. भी assignment पे जा रहे हो. This is something that I do. I don't post from on ground. कि क्यों? कि अच्छा, if you are, even if it is you are on a break, why even post that one meal ka photo and give out your locations and your information and putting yourself at more risk than necessary? Put it 2 days later once you're out of that scenario. That's one. And scrubbing your social, right? Just a quick Google about yourself, see what information is coming out. Uh, it could be as simple as your Spotify playlist, or that one YouTube comment or something that you might have liked or shared. क्यों मौके ही क्यों देना when we know कि दुनिया एंड टेक्नोलॉजी, सोशल मीडिया पे तो लोग ट्रोल करने ही बैठे हैं, ऐसे कीड़े निकालने को ही बैठे हैं. तो why even leave these crumbs out there? Scrub your social, simple as that. Pre-assignment, just quick Google your name, see what's coming up, what's not coming up, what do you want to be up there. Do that. It's a safe practice. It's I mean, yeah, do it. Abhi during May, be well rested. If you function on 8 hours of sleep, get that 8 hours of sleep. If you function on 4 hours of sleep, get that 4 hours of sleep. Be hydrated. Hydration. These are these tiny things, but turns out these tiny things are the ones which add up to the quality of your assignment, or add up to your personal safety while you are putting yourself into these situations. Keep a quick snack जिसे हाथ गंदे ना हो. Protein bars are a good option, but how accessible are protein bars? Chicky is something that I really enjoy keeping in my bag. चिक्की तुमको फील्ड पे कहीं भी मिल जाएगी, किसी भी पान डब्बा पे. ₹5 you give, you will get that one square of it. You will be good to go till your next meal. Oral rehydration salt, ORS की packet, keep it. You would be like, okay, yeah, no, मैं ठीक हूँ, मैं हो ठीक. What if you are stuck? What if you get stuck in a stampede? What if you lose all your things? खाना पीना तो नहीं रुकना चाहिए ना ऐसी situations में. At least gives you that energy to walk to those 2 या 20 kilometers. तुम खुद चल के जाने उतनी एनर्जी तो मिल जाएगी तुमको. It will keep you prepared for any sort of worst case scenarios. So This is something that you need to stick to during an assignment. And then protecting your identity. Like I said, pre social scrub kar lo, but while you are on ground, while you are doing that particular story, why even attract attention to it while you yourself are reporting on such a crucial, sensitive topic? Of course, once it's published, once it's out there, do all the social media hangama that is required these days. But while you are in the middle of it, it's safe to, sort of protect your identity. I think that's always important. One, it will save your mental space and time, and it'll keep you focused. You won't have to be thinking about अच्छा मैंने ये डाल दिया कोई उल्टा सीधा कमेंट तो नहीं आ गया. वो हेडेक ही हटा दो ना, बाद में देख लेंगे स्टोरी खत्म होने के बाद. There's this other technique called OODA loop. It's OODA. This is something that historically fighter pilots have been using it during their combat missions. This is called observe, orient, decide, and then act. But here's what I say. You have observed a situation कि क्या हो रहा है. You have oriented yourself to the situation after observing कि क्या हो रहा है और कैसे बदल रहा है situation. उसके हिसाब से you have mapped out hospital, entry point, exit point, lawyer, ये वो सारा कुछ है तुम्हारे पास. Now you will also be deciding on क्या action लेना है. So ये SWOT analysis में you would have done your strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. This is where that information will come handy in making your decisions कि क्या क्या कर सकती हूँ मैं और क्या नहीं कर सकती हूँ मैं would is something that would come handy, the decisive part. Now once you have decided on a course of action, अभी for maximum impact. The goal is to always create maximum impact, right? For which you need to act on the decision that you have thought of taking. For which you'll also need to consider timeliness. None of this is going to be maximum impact if the timing of these things is not right. मानो February के शुरू में there is World Wetland Day. Now, if I drop a story on a wetland right now, it is not of the maximum impact. Now, the same story, after I have, observed the whole situation, I have oriented myself कि ये वाले convention में क्या चल रहा है, what is that particular organization talking about it, what are the things to look out for. I have collected, observed how the trend is going to change. Now it is on me to decide on do I post it as an Instagram story, do I post it as an Instagram post या LinkedIn पे ऐसे बड़ा सा post डालूं. These are the type of decisions that I would take. And now when will I act? डालने को I could post it आज शाम को ही, or I could wait till 2 to 3 days before this World's Wetland Day is and then post it then for maximum impact, because that's when a lot more people would have been sitting and talking about this issue. That's when they would go and click on that hashtag World Wetland Day. And that's when your post would be coming up or your story would be boosted. That's you creating maximum impact. So a SWOT analysis and an OODA loop are the two things which can make you more time efficient, can simplify your routines. Abhi, everybody does these things, but the catch is on how to simplify your life, on how to make things more efficient and automate them. Okay, you're not going to have to sit and rework and redo the same thing over and over again. Of course, by now you would have found patterns. List them out and see how you can streamline things. So that during ये सारा करते हो तो your during an assignment things will be more efficient. right? Which would again lead to you having that extra half an hour of sleep or that extra 20 minutes of that shower. I don't know, whatever it is, or that 15 minutes of the time spent with your baby or your family, whatever it is. The whole goal is to make your time efficient. And as soon as you're back, शाम को ऐसे आते हो, you're drain, emotionally draining होता है, mentally, physically draining होता है, right? Take time to process. Just, you know, move on, do whatever, these few things which help you to be more grounded. Right? ऐसे आते हो, you have absorbed these different energies and emotions, mental situations and scenarios. You have to acknowledge that none of it is normal. In a normal day, none of this happens, but these are some extremely challenging situations and times and moments that you have put yourself through. Now, the to say that, oh yeah, I will detach from it completely, I don't see how you can detach from something of that scale completely within a couple of hours. But I'm sure you can, calm yourself down. I say, eat something which comforts you, take a hot shower or a cold shower, whatever it is that, helps you come back into your thoughts.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Rest. Right? Don't overstress it. But then again, quickly back up your data, charge your devices immediately. वो आओ, because बस field पे होना ही is not going to cut it, right? You're gonna come back and it's still an extension of the assignment. Till I have backed up my data, till I have set all my equipment and devices to charge, I can't switch my work brain off.
Why you say?
So I see these actions as an extension of work. So yeah, do it as soon as you're back so you can wrap up that chapter and then you can move on to how to center yourself, how to ground yourself. Yeah, these are some of the things that you have to keep in practice, right? Take that time for yourself. If calling a family member helps, do it. Be cognizant of your emotions, right? Don't suppress them. If you are feeling helpless, that you are feeling helpless. It, but then you have to be aware that it is not your place to, I don't know, go flip the system over its head. It will happen in due course. Can we mute it? It's a little disturbing. Wait a minute. Alrighty. So yes, extension of work. कोई pending emails होंगे, or just if sitting and writing things down helps, do it, but do it from the comfort of your hotel room or your home. Anything which is familiar to you. Or if that one particular little stuffed toy helps you, sit with it. But do these things and keep them in general regular practice. Something that I do after I'm back from an assignment is, yeah, data backup ASAP and put all my devices to charge. I think that's when I feel at ease. That's when my body also sort of understands कि अच्छा अब काम आज का काम खत्म हो चुका है. And then again, before I jump to doing my risk assessment and then doing this whole OODA loop exercise and then orienting myself for day 2 of the assignment, I'll take that little break, sort of not carry over day 1's emotions into my day 2. I will acknowledge, okay, you know what, the day has come to an end. I need to refocus on myself. I need to clean myself and get rid of all the smells that are stuck on me. That is a big thing for me, right? The smells that you accumulate through your assignment. ऐसी situation हटा भी दो, but that is all stuck on you. So get out of it. Get out of it. Go get that shower. Go paint your nails if that's what you like. Eat well, and then get yourself your rest. Wake up in the morning, quickly do your risk assessments, orient yourself, get back into the mind frame, and then day two, repeat. Day three, repeat. But yeah, you have to rest to process events. I can't stress enough on it. Like even नींद भी नहीं आ रही है, बस पड़े रहो चुपचाप से is how I have been uh, going on. Hi, any more questions up until now before I move on to the next segment, guys?
Almas, maybe you can just finish your presentation and then maybe we can have a session entirely on the questions,
Oh,
because I
the next one's an
no,
activity that I need people to participate. I
yeah,
need your engagement.
yeah.
So Pooja, Aishwarya, Evelyn, Basira, yeah. So that's that. Here's where I'm at the moment. I would like everybody's participation. If you can quickly take a screenshot of this. These are some of the scenarios, these three scenarios that I have. And I would like to do a quick brainstorming session, so to say, where we come up with a headline, we identify different sources, and what are the kind of data or the visuals or gray literature that you would use for these following three types of stories. Do we have people around?
Yeah, nine. One second.
Almas, I just saw one scenario. I think is the picture same for all the three scenarios? Because I saw this one picture. I don't know if three different scenarios or not.
But what is this? I can just see this call with Pranav screenshot.
एक मिनट. Okay, do you guys want to take a quick screenshot या कैसे करना है?
No, I think it was another slide on her desktop. Something like that.
Maybe you can just keep this slide for a moment, or I don't know, because my phone's battery is drained. I really cannot take a screenshot.
So this is a scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you guys pick. So there are three scenarios. अभी ये exercise करेंगे, but I'll let you pick on which story it is that you'd like to. In topic A, story 2 or story 3. These three are three different scenarios. And then we would be working on those stories to create a headline to identify the sources and visuals and data. These are three tech stories within the unorganized sector. Guys, anybody would want to take the lead? I'd appreciate it if you do.
Can you give us like 2 minutes to read through?
Absolutely, take your time. Yes, please.
Almas, I can take a shot at the third idea.
Okay, ठीक है. So, you've read the brief. How about you quickly give me a summary of what you think is going on in the last story? We'll start with that.
So what's going on is the gendered nature of caregiving,
Mm-hmm.
and also like the gendered nature of social dynamics. Because
Mm-hmm.
of that, women are falling behind in like AI driven work scenarios, which are favoring candidates who do not I'm guessing male candidates, because they don't have any such responsibilities which women might have, or they have been given preference because of being male. So because of this, the young women are losing out because the company is not adequately taking into account the social dynamics.
Right. Okay. So if we were to develop the skeleton of this story, Manu, we were to pitch it to somebody, um, how would you bucketize it under a topic, a story, and a headline, right? And who are the sort of people that you would speak with, and what sort of data would you rely on to make it a compelling, convincing stories? And what would your objective be from the story? Ab this is the scenario. Ab हो तो रहा है. Abhi you can't suddenly expect young women to not look after their children or families. And you can't even overnight push this change within the development and industry structures. So how would you balance these interests with your story?
So, first, I would look into the labor right laws and see what it says about employing, uh, how much diversity, gender diversity they should ensure while hiring, and if the company is complying with those laws.
Mm-hmm.
So that is coming from a policy perspective. In terms of from a policy perspective, whether there are some protections for women or a preference given to women because of the many responsibilities they have to burden.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have a thought.
mhm.
So from abhi, most of this nature of work would be contractual work. By default, they
Mm,
would be left out of most labor laws.
mm.
So
But I
how
think,
navigate that? क्योंकि contractual work है. On paper,
mm,
they are working based on this one particular middleman. उनके गांव का कोई एक पहुंचा हुआ आदमी होगा, where you'll also have to think about these caste dynamics. He would be palsy with the industry वालों का कोई एक point of contact. They would have hired this man. Now this man is the one who's going around and bringing, अच्छा मैं दिन के 200 लोगों को ला सकता हूँ, मैं दिन के 300 लोगों को ला सकता हूँ. So in these scenarios, all the systemic labor laws that are there go out for a toss.
Right.
So how do we navigate that scenario while also speaking about the very access to work?
So, I mean, I'm thinking it can be.
Let's dial it back even before we come up with a headline. Let's start from the last thing which is written on this, visuals and data. What will strengthen the story? So you sort of have the story. What are the things that you would access? One of them you mentioned were the labor laws, which are sort of these four codes which the country has moved towards legally and constitutionally. So what next?
So in terms of visuals, I was thinking like, the best way would be to go into, say, a particular village from where people are being hired. And in terms of data, map the demographics of that village, uh, how many men and women and what kind of jobs they hold, what is the educational level. And in terms of visuals, like really go into like, their homes and talk to these women and men and capture and really find out like, what kind of opportunities the genders had access to and what stopped them from having like, in either, I mean, in both cases, if somebody was prevented from having those access, why so. And I think talking to people would also bring out the caste and gender dynamics of that particular place. So before pitching, I mean, if it's a pitch, then it would require a significant amount of pre-reporting. Yeah, and the socio-economic status of that particular geographical area. And what is I'm forgetting the full form, the NF data on like, like by geographical location also you can see the demographics and what kind of work they do and the gender, and also delve into the local politics also, because
But how would
yeah,
you make so the scenario that you have mentioned is a very hyper local story, right? You have gone hyper local. Caste आ गया, geographical issues आ गए, landscape आ गया, caste आ गया. How would you connect it with global audiences? Manu, you have to pitch this story to the Guardian or a New York Times. How are you taking this hyper local story and in a way, because see, the the nature of the story is such that this could be happening in anywhere within the global south at the moment.
right. So since it's a corporation, I mean, I took that hyperlocal as an example, like as a case study, right? So since it's a corporation and if it's spread out in the global south, then it will also require investigation into other areas,
Mm.
as in what's happening in other areas. I mean, I can start with one case study and then draw similar data from other areas where this corporation is working and like, what the dynamics are there, how they're recruiting, through whom. So, and usually these corporations are based out of the West and they employ labor from global South because it's cheaper. So, I mean, that is one way to link it for a global audience, because it will be also useful to find out where all they have bases, labor, like, where they're employing people.
Correct, but how is that uh, helping strengthen the story? That's just information that will help you. वो जान गए कि अच्छा दे आर वर्किंग आउट ऑफ द फिलीपींस में उनका एक सेटअप है, इंडोनेशिया में एक सेटअप है, इंडिया में एक सेटअप है. What next?
Right. So, and then it would be come to the, I mean, I would look into the company's code of like, what they say about DEI and whether it is abiding by its own policies.
How that's a very, very large rabbit hole. You are saying that you would prove that this so and so and so is stated in the company, but on ground it's not happening. How would you go about proving that? And how much time would you spend on that? Something like that took me 3 years to just be able to gather evidence. And then the cases went on for another couple more years. And
Right.
that's when the country started talking about, okay, we will enforce A, B, C, D. So do we have 5 years of time for a story like this? उतने में तो उनका बच्चा भी बड़ा हो जाएगा.
Okay. So then, then I'll now hand it over to you to educate me about how to go about it.
No, I'd like more participation, honestly. Basira, Seher, do you guys have any ideas on how we could crack this? Like, what other visual data sources would you gather, or okay, who all would you interview? Who would your sources be for such a story?
Oh, hi, hi, Almas. I
Hi.
think for hi, I think for this story, we need to maybe take visuals of women more or interview them more and to see like what is their perspective, like how they are feeling about this, especially when they want to earn also and feed their babies, especially in an age where you need to earn for your babies, I would say. For example, there are certain groups where men are not totally responsible for like getting the financial things for the households. Even women are involved.
Right.
So to get to the depth, like how these women have suffered the brunt, right?
Mm.
And maybe then engaging into the AI thing, like how AI is affecting women more, like how these women who need some time for upbringing their children, it's affecting them more than the men. Maybe to give it a gender perspective, right?
Mm.
I think so. And like carrying their visuals while like they are busy with their babies, with raising their babies.
Wouldn't that be reinforcing the idea that सी ये लोग तो यही कामों में बिजी हैं, तो अपना ये ऑफिस का काम करने में कहाँ टाइम मिलेगा? Isn't that reinforcing that idea visually? कि देखने वाले को भी बोला हाँ ये तो ठीक ही लग रहा है. उसमें थॉट क्या आ रहा है लोगों को? अगर हम ऐसी फोटो बताते हैं तो क्या थॉट आ रहा है? So should we
Right.
really be enforcing these ideas, or should we be challenging these ideas?
We can be challenging, like we can show the multitasking women do,
Yeah.
like they can simultaneously they can go for the jobs or they can go to this industry and they can be taking care of the babies as well, or like such kinds of things. Like in the West, we have like these facilities for the women who are upbringing their kids. Like the daycare is very nearby, so they
Mm.
put in their children over there and
Yeah.
they can also like work simultaneously.
Brilliant. I love this idea, right? That we have also taken an example from the West where this particular company could be situated in, and tell them कि अच्छा तुम ऐसी facilities यहाँ पे क्यों नहीं provide कर सकते? You're
Right,
sort of mentioning the company. दूसरा, you're also creating these alternatives for women
right.
कि ये अगर क्रीश यहाँ पे डाल दोगे तो औरत जो है उसका टाइम फ्री हो जाएगा ना कुछ और करने को.
Yep,
इट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड कि ऐसे अपना 24 आवर्स बच्चे को लेके ही बैठ सके. शी कैन 100% बी विद द चाइल्ड एंड ऑल्सो बी taking up other things in her day.
true.
That's a possibility. I mean, Safina would be
Also,
a better person to comment on it, or tell us about it, right?
Safina, as well as the
She's
new
still
mom.
working
Yeah, also.
as a journalist with a baby. So I mean, that's a beautiful example right there. कि मानो ऐसे AI driven, मानो this woman is sitting with a phone while she's playing with the child. She's engaging the baby, which is taking care of section one of her responsibilities, while also taking care of her mental well-being mano, her financial responsibility mano, call it what you will. It's important to showcase people the flip side of things instead of reinforcing the common misconceptions or these common doubts that people have. ऐसे it would be helpful to show visually how this woman is um, managing her time. कि मानो अगर इस आदमी को and for that we don't just have to go photograph a woman in her natural setting. We could also draw comparisons by going and taking photographs of these favorable candidates that the company thinks. So it would be helpful to point out what these favorable conditions are according to the company and then talk about these conditions कि उनमें क्या 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 उनको access मिला है और because of the gender या because of the situations and variables ये चीजें इस particular demographic को क्यों नहीं मिल पाई हैं. So as simple and despite that, if if even one or two women are going and doing that, there is no harm highlighting it. भले ही उस औरत को सुबह के 4 बजे उठ के करना पड़ा हो एज अपोज टू द मैन वेकिंग अप एट 8 o'clock. सो यू कुड शो ऐसे रात के अंधेरे में वो उठ के कुछ कर रही है, कुड बी अ विजुअल एज अपोज टू दिस मैन still in bed at 7:30 in the morning. These comparisons you can draw. It will get people thinking कि अरे despite that, she's still willing to go do something like that. What are the alternatives that we can provide? What are the alternatives that will help ease the issue? Another thing could be कि education नहीं मिल पा रहा है, जाके स्कूल टीचर्स से बात करो. स्कूल टीचर्स would could make for great interview sources in this. Um, बाकी yeah, of course the industry people, उनके PRO को पकड़ो, उनके spokesperson को पकड़ो, write to them. If not them, then get an expert. I mean, when we speak of the expert wala space is also very gray. It could be a university के professor who has underdone immense research in it. But then again, you'll also have to be cognizant about the gender in that. तुम यहाँ पे ये टॉपिक पे बात कर रहे हो कि a young woman does not have access into this, but the expert himself is a man who is speaking on behalf of women doesn't make sense. So be cognizant about the type, the gender, the demographic of the expert also you are bringing in to comment about these issues. And if it's a woman who has taken up these responsibilities, you've seen that, then that's the best candidate to be speaking on these issues. So that's something also that helps. Baki or sources, wait, the woman herself, you can also go and grill the favorable candidate also. Okay, what do you think makes you favorable? तुमने ऐसा क्या कर लिया जिंदगी में कि तुमको ये मिलना चाहिए और किसी और को क्यों नहीं मिलना चाहिए? Right, by highlighting that, I think will also give us some sense of you'll be able to highlight and showcase these क्या बोलते हैं उनको, these disparities. You'll be able to highlight these disparities, or you will be able to put these biases and stereotypes right up front, glaring into people's faces. When they'll read it, they'll just be like, oh shit. Right? Even if you're making somebody say, oh, I think that's good enough. Even if two people do that, that's two human beings and their networks and connections. You're starting conversations. Yeah, I think yeah, and headline could be what's the focus? What's the type of focus that you would do? I don't know. It's totally up to you on based on the story and the topic that you chase in this. Yeah, education पे focus करते हो या alternatives पे focus करते हो, या वो बायसेस को हाईलाइट करने पे फोकस करते हो, या वो इंडस्ट्री के लॉज एंड इस पे इन्वेस्टिगेट करते हो, the headlines could alter, and you can do a quick play on words based on what lead it is that you're chasing within this scope of story. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much done with my interview. That's me. Thank you. That's my website. You'd find examples and more stories of my work and a lot more about my experience. That's my email ID. I would love to keep in touch with all of you even after this. And Instagram, of course, as a photographer, that's where most of my work also goes. So, yeah, I'm going to stop sharing the presentation now and be more present. And I'm open for a volley of questions.
Thank you so much, Almaas. Guys, do we have any specific questions? I think, Almaas, you have answered like everything in advance. Yeah. They're like, we have no question. Everything is already pre-answered.
I hope that's a good thing.
It is, undoubtedly. Safina, do you have any question? I think she raised her hand even when you were just on your first or second slide. I don't know if she's there or not. Nadia, do you have any question?
But if you do, or even at a later point, of course, my DMs are open. I'd
Yeah,
love a good conversation at any given point. So, yes, please.
absolutely. So, okay, if we do not have any further questions, then maybe we can just wrap up. Thank you, Almaas, so much for your, for sharing such valuable insights on tech and labor reporting for women journalists, especially I think these scenarios where you're actually thinking about, all these things in advance. I think it also helped me to sort of, thinking like actually what should we be doing, and it's the scenario part. That was the most I think important and critical part. It is, I think it's one of the most critical parts that we can think during our pre-reporting. And I really appreciate your expertise on this. I hope we stay connected and hope to engage with you again in the future. And by the time, if our members have any questions, they can reach out to you. And whenever you have time, then you can just, respond to them.
Well, it was a pleasure addressing. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Alia.
Okay. Thank you so much, Almaas, and thank you, everyone. Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.